Thank you for joining us. My name is Asaf Weiss, and I serve as Vice President of the American Jewish Congress. It is an honor to moderate this important briefing, hosted by the American Jewish Congress in partnership with the World Zionist Organization. Over the last couple of weeks, we followed the news as Israel and the US carried out a major operation against Iran's nuclear and missile sites. Iran, in turn, launched massive ballistic missiles at Israel's civilian population, causing significant damage to lives and cities. On the Gaza front, this morning, President Trump announced that Israel has agreed to a 60-day ceasefire as part of the deal to bring our hostages home. We all hope that this agreement includes every last hostage. None should be left behind. Next week, Prime Minister Netanyahu will visit the White House for talks with President Trump. With everything that is going on both Israel, the US, Iran, and Gaza, we have a lot to discuss today. We are honored to host our keynote speaker today, Dr. Eyal Hulata, former National Security Advisor and head of Israel's National Security Council. I had the privilege of witnessing Eyal's professionalism firsthand when I served as the Chief of Staff of the Speaker of the Knesset. He is, without question, one of the most significant voices on these issues today. We will have the time for questions at the end of the briefing, so please submit your questions in the chat at any point during the sessions. Before we begin, I encourage everyone to follow us on social media and to join our mailing list. You'll find the links in your email that we sent you. As always, we continue to advocate for the immediate release of the 50 hostages who are still held captive under inhumane conditions by Hamas in Gaza. Both President Rosen of the American Jewish Congress and President Tova Dorfman of the World Zionist Organization are actively working to secure their release and support their families. Now, let's begin. It is my pleasure to introduce Daniel Rosen, President of the American Jewish Congress. Daniel has led our organization through intense geopolitical challenges and expanded our global engagement. He remains a leading voice for Israel and the Jewish people in Washington and beyond. Daniel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Asaf, and thank you, everyone, and good morning. I want to thank my dear friend Tova Dorfman for co-hosting this briefing with us. As we all know, we just finished a very tense and difficult few weeks in Israel following a military operation against Iran to remove nuclear and ballistic threats to Israel, the region, and the world. And no nation in the world would agree to live under its shadow with a stated goal of annihilation. I also want to commend President Trump for his decision to take strong action. As an American, a Jew, and a citizen of the free world, I am proud of this decision, which saw American pilots flying wing to wing with Israeli pilots to eliminate an existential danger not only to Israel, but to the United States, the region, and the entire world. While the Iranian regime labels Israel the little Satan, we must remember that they call the United States the great Satan. In face of such rhetoric, it is more important than ever that we ground ourselves in facts and get a true understanding of the potential paths ahead. That is why we are honored today to host Eyal Hulata, one of the most thoughtful and informed voices on national security in these critical times. Eyal, thank you for joining us. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to call for the immediate release of the 50 Israeli hostages who have been held since October 7th by the murderous terror organization Hamas. The American Jewish Congress will continue to work tirelessly with the global community and with the US administration to secure their freedom. We remain hopeful that we will soon hear positive news on this urgent matter. With Prime Minister Netanyahu coming to DC next week with news of a possible ceasefire, the complexity of the situation with Iran and Gaza have never been greater. We look forward to an enlightening discussion with Eyal, and thank you again all for joining us.
Thank you, Daniel. Now, we are also joined today by Tova Dorfman, President of the World Zionist Organization and the Director of the Steinhardt Foundation. Tova is a tireless advocate for the Jewish people, leading effort to empower Jewish identity and education around the world. Tova, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Asaf. Thank you, Dan. It's truly an honor for the World Zionist Organization to be part of this important webinar series hosted by the American Jewish Congress. I'm not sure how many of you were with us last week, but at that time, Israel was still in the midst of an active conflict with Iran. And just hours after the webinar, a ceasefire went to an effect, but not before a final barrage of ballistic missiles, which struck a residential building in Beersheba, tragically killing 4 people. The past 12 days have been exhausting and devastating. Asaf can tell you he's from Ramat Gan and has also suffered some personal loss as well. And we've lost 29 civilians and over 3,000 people have been injured. More than 13,000 individuals have been displaced from their homes. And today, more than 12,000 evacuees are being housed in 84 hotels across the country. But these aren't just statistics. They represent families, individuals, lives that have been completely uprooted. And their needs must be met with urgency, dignity, and compassion. And this is a national effort that we're dealing with right now, one that requires close coordination between government ministries, local authorities, and civil society. And our people are strong and resilient, but they should not be expected to carry this burden alone. So we need your help and support as much as possible. And while we manage this crisis, we cannot forget the ongoing tragedy that began on October 7th. And today marks 634 days since that horrific day, and still 50 hostages, as Asaf mentioned and as Dan mentioned, remain in Hamas. Their release an urgent and unwavering priority. I know Mr. Hulata will speak more to this and to the potential for a deal in the next. That we are resilient, but we're also tired. We're holding on to hope that the hostages will come home soon, and that together we can begin to heal and work towards rebuilding a stronger, safer, Jewish, and democratic Israel. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Tova. And now it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Eyal Hulata. Eyal, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Asaf, and thank you, Dan and Tova. I'm honored to be on this stage with you. These are all interesting times, much to cover. Let's get going.
So do you want us to do you want me to start with the questions, or do you want to?
I can start with maybe a brief of where I think we're standing, and then take it from
Wonderful.
From there. We are at a point where I think in the next few days we will see more broadly how things are going to shift towards the future. This is not an ending phase of anything. Both Tova and Dan have spoken about the events that have been carrying out for so long. I was National Security Advisor in years 21 and 22. And many of the things that we're seeing now were thought of or planned in advance. But if you would have taken back in time to that period to say that we will be now in the summer of 25 with still recovering from the worst trauma the Jewish people had since the end of the Holocaust in October 7, but then the crushing. There's no other way, or I think we can use as it comes to what the IDF was able to do to Hamas and then to Lebanon, Hezbollah, and of course the final 12-day war with Iran. We're witnessing a chain of events that is both unprecedented and in some respect exceeds, I think, the imagination of all of us. And where does that put us in this current situation? It has many various aspects. And again, I know that you're all very educated. I will not waste time on going after what I think is important that has happened in the past, but I'm more looking forward into the things we should look into the way to the future. Iran for so many years was the grand architect and driver of all of the major enemy conflicts and crises that Israel has faced throughout decades, definitely over the last 20 years, as they started ramping up Hezbollah capabilities after the Second Lebanese War. When Iran is in a position that it is today, and all of its options are bad, we need to be very, very careful while we look ahead into the prospect of various aspects. Iran, I think, as far as I can understand, the damage to its nuclear program is severe. Its paths towards building a weapon out of the enriched uranium that they still have, that is true, is by and large blocked for the various avenues that they can try to go through. But we will still need to be very careful to see that they do not follow any of those paths. I don't know if the engagement with the Americans will work. I don't know if the negotiation with Oman can lead to something that is long-lasting and significant by way of a diplomatic arrangement. From an Israeli perspective, the damage is significant, but we have to be very careful looking to the future to see that Iran does not find other ways to sneak into those capabilities. But even while we look at that, we need to keep an open eye to see what will Iran do with the ring of fire and the host of proxies that the network that they've built around us for so many years, that at the moment are at the lowest point, I think, ever. Hamas has never been so weak, or Hezbollah has never been so weak. But as long as the regime in Iran is still tuned and focused on the target of annihilating Israel and moving us over the face of the Middle East, they will try to find other ways, of course, to rebuild either this a set of organizations, maybe another set of organizations. And this is another thing that will keep us very busy, I think, in all ranks and positions in the Israeli establishment. I would want to think also in the American establishment. So this is as it comes to Iran directly. The immediate issue at hand over the next few weeks, of course, will be what happens to the war in Gaza. Unfortunately, the major dilemmas or major questions there have become so politicized that almost everything anyone says immediately labels them as either on this side or the other side of the political sphere. This is never good, right? This is not something that we should look at, and it's been normalized because this is the way the Israeli lives, unfortunately, have been. So it's very difficult to have a professional discussion without immediately being labeled as supportive or opposing the government. But the dilemmas are still there. The war has been waging for so long. Clearly, the longest war Israel has engaged in, if you don't count the Milchemet HaTasha, right, the war in attrition between the 6-day war and Yom Kippur war, such a long war. The IDF was not devised, not planned, and not built for such a long war. And the dilemmas at hand about the presence of the IDF in Gaza Strip over a long period of time will become more and more contentious if this does not come to a resumed stop in the near future. It's hard to know exactly what are the intentions of President Trump towards the meeting with Minister Netanyahu early next week. I can imagine that if there's so much said about his plan or his intent to be fierce about putting this war to an end, I think we should expect that this is the momentum that will happen, but it doesn't have to happen that way. It's not only an Israeli decision, it's a Hamas decision. The Qataris and the Egyptians will play a role in this. So it's hard to predict in which way this will go, and we'll need to be very open to both options. My hope is that this set of conditions would allow to bring upon the release of all 50 hostages, the dead ones, and also the live ones, and also the dead ones, all of them. There is the family of Adar Golding are still waiting to get their son to proper burial. It's going to be 11 years in a month, when it will be the 11th year of Tzuk Eitan, of Protective Edge, coming this August. This is how wide and large this will be, if indeed we can have all of them come home properly. This will definitely entail an end to the war in Gaza and the withdrawal of IDF, I think, for most of the Strip, not necessarily from all of it. Depends on how the arrangements will be. But in any case, Israel will need to continue to proactively enforce any arrangement that will happen in Gaza, just as much as we do with Lebanon, and keep a very close and tight security enforcement to make sure that there are no major breaches of any of the arrangements. Hamas is not able to regain their structure and their hold in Gaza to bring in and to smuggle back the ammunition that they need to pose a threat to Israel. These are all the things that we will need to deal with, even if the war ends, as I will hope that we'll see in the coming days and weeks.
Thank you, Eyal. This was very, very interesting. We have a couple of questions from the audience. I just want to remind everyone you can type in your questions as well while we're doing the Q&A, and we'll get to them, hopefully, to all the questions. Now, the first question, I know you spoke about this a little bit, and maybe you can expand on it a little. Now that the operation in Iran is concluded, what is your estimation about the actual damage to Iran's nuclear and missile infrastructure? Because we've heard like contradicting reports between news channels and what President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu has announced. So what is your estimation on the things that is going on the ground?
So first, to be fair, I think that even Iran does not yet know the amount of damage that was done to the facilities, especially those who were bombed so severely and they're buried in rubble. I think it's hard also for them to know what can be salvaged from it. But let's take a step back and start with what was planned to be attacked. This quite wide attack on all, I think all of the components of the Iranian nuclear program encompasses all of the facilities, equipment, and key personnel that were known to the Israeli intelligence community and to the American intelligence community for many, many years. In many respects, and again, I was not participating in the approval of this specific raid, but I know the preliminary planning of it from previous years. The aim was, and I'm sure as executed as follows, to make the most damage possible by an air raid to all of the components of the Iranian program. And that is very significant. There are various elements in it. I would assume that both major enrichment facilities, both in Natanz and in Fordo, especially after the American raid on Fordo, are not only inoperable, but in a position that taking out the rubble and rebuilding this is going to be a very, very expansive and long and expensive as well effort by the Iranians that I'm not sure that, given all of the damage that was done, will be easier for them to do. The damage to the enrichment centrifuges, production facilities is also very significant. The conversion facilities, all of the elements needed for that were severely damaged. Having said that, there are two things that were harder to hit with this kind of a raid. The first is the stockpile of the enriched uranium. A lot have been talked about this. There are about 400 or 500 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. I won't go into the technical details, but it is significant. There's also a stockpile of 20% and 3.5%. And these have been stored in places that were more difficult to reach from the air in such a raid, even with the massive ordnance penetrators that the US has dropped on Iran on that night of their attack. Iran can salvage that material. I'm sure that they will try to salvage that material, and maybe it's buried in rubble at the moment, and the entrances to the tunnels are covered, but eventually they'll find a way to get there, and maybe they even removed some of them before that. They were also reporting about that. They also have centrifuges. It's true. They have quite a large number of centrifuges and advanced centrifuges that I'm sure were salvaged, and they might, should they choose to try that avenue, build another enrichment facility somewhere either underground or above ground, and try to complete the enrichment to 90%. This would be a very serious act on their behalf. I'm sure that the Mossad and other intelligence organizations in Israel and also in the US will keep an open eye. We'll talk about that in a second. And they will try to, they might try to sneak and do that. But even if they did, the significance of the attack that Israel done on the first night, the night between the 12th and 13th of June, on the weaponization program, I think this is the key element that changes the way we should look at this. And I haven't seen enough spoken about this in the various reporting, mostly here in the US, regarding that. We were able, as Israel, to eliminate almost simultaneously, decapitate the major nuclear weapon scientists in Iran. There are people that we've been following for many, many years, people that have worked in what was called the Ahmad Project until 2003, that all of their activities were revealed when we brought the archive back in the beginning of 2018, and we were able to follow not only what they were doing, but where they were doing, what kind of students they were building, what kind of knowledge they were keeping. These are the people that the Supreme Leader needs should he give an order to dash for a bomb, to take that enriched uranium and transform it into a bomb that could be put in a warhead of a missile and deployed to Israel. And that level of damage is significant. Not a lot is spoken about this because we haven't been following this too much. When the JCPOA was signed, the weaponization side was not dealt with properly. Many things were not dealt with properly by JCPOA, but definitely the weaponization aspect of the Iranian nuclear program. And I think what that means is that the Supreme Leader, even if he wants to, and orders his teams, dash to the bomb because this is what I need after everything that was done, I don't think they can do that. I don't think they have the path, the people, the expertise, the facilities to make this entire setting. If this is indeed the case, as I said now, that we've incurred significant damage to the Iranian nuclear program and their ability to reach that purpose. If I'm wrong, and we missed key issues, or there were things the Iranians have hid from us, then that would mean that they will be able to recover faster than I anticipate. And this again kicks in the importance of very proactive intelligence activity on all of the aspects of the Iranian program. We should not take for granted that we succeeded. We definitely should not take for granted that they will decide to give away their ambitions to get a bomb or to destroy Israel as a whole. There's going to be a lot of need for very prudent, intelligent work as it comes to monitoring what Iran is doing.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions about Iran and also about the tension or the disagreement perhaps between Trump and Netanyahu. But before I'll ask those questions, I want to touch on the thing that you kind of ended your answer about, which is the motivation of the Iranian regime in continuing on to pursue the nuclear capabilities. So you spoke about their abilities to continue on, but how do you estimate their motivation to continue with this?
So I think we need to understand when it comes to this regime in Iran, is definitely as it comes to the Supreme Leader, this is one of maybe the most ideological regimes in the world today. Very religious, very committed. And the ambition to eradicate Israel is a core principle in the way that they have carved their strategy regionally. That will not change, I think, as long as there is a revolutionary regime in Tehran. We can talk about what could happen to the regime, and there's a lot of discussion whether or not we should follow regime change. I'm not sure it's something for us to declare as an objective, but definitely I will say that as long as this regime, as long as the Ayatollahs with this mindset and obligation to eradicate Israel are in power in Tehran, there will not be any quiet, not only in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and Haifa and Beersheba, but I think in all of the major capitals of the Arab countries around us. Iran has been the adversary, not only to us, their national security risk to the region as a whole. And I say that because when you ask about the motivation, they've tried various strategies over the last 4.5 decades since the revolution 79, and increasingly so in the last couple of decades, to find ways to implement that strategy, not only to keep it there. This is how they built, this is why and how they built the network of proxies around us, Hezbollah and others. The collapse of the countries, not only Lebanon, but also Syria, the takeover of all of the thinking of Hamas, funding and training that they've done, especially since Protective Edge in 2014. This has been a strategy to build a network or a chain of organizations around us, and to try to crumble us from within through the kind of what they thought they could do, and basically over many years, unfortunately, was true. Their ability to continuously fire at our heavily populated people in thinking that this will crumble us from within. Well, the society in Israel is stronger, I think, than what they have anticipated, even though it does have its stall. But that strategy didn't succeed. They will also try to do this through means of terror, and I would unfortunately have to warn all of us that I think that we're facing a very unfortunately, I hope it won't be bloody, because we're able to find and to foil all of those attacks. But they will definitely try to attack around the world, Jewish targets, Israeli targets, because this is basically what is left for them to do. But to go back to the question of nuclear weapon, I would assume that they will still keep this motivation. I will assume that whatever they think they have a chance to try to do this, especially now after the attack, I'm worried that they will try to withdraw from the Non-Proliferation Treaty and to stop the IAEA inspector. This is something that the international community, the US, will need to insist on. And I think, as I said before, that they will try to devise ways to salvage the materials that they had and to rebuild it. So I'm worried about their motivation, but I'm very proud at what I think we've been able to prove that we can do by intelligence and also in operational capabilities. This will be the mission ahead. It has been so for 25 years. I've been dealing with the Iranian nuclear program for about 25 years. When we started, it seemed like something that we might not succeed in, and this will be the case in the future. We have to succeed. We just have to prevent them from acquiring a weapon of mass destruction and to use all means, as we've proven that we can do over the last few weeks.
For sure. Thank you. You've touched actually about a couple of questions regarding the terrorist attack, the Iran going back to the international large-scale terrorist attack that we've seen throughout the years. There's a question about like the broader geopolitical perspective. If you can discuss about the gap between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu on Iran, and what the Prime Minister will like to secure from the US during his trip to Washington. President Trump wants a deal with Iran, perhaps, said that Iran can sell oil to China. And Prime Minister Netanyahu said, must build on success of strikes on Iran, the regime change, perhaps, as well. So you can get your take on
that. Look, I think to talk about the gaps between US and Israel now, after what we've seen over the last 2 weeks, I think is a bit different. If I was here on this webinar 2 weeks ago, then I would have said, as I did in other opportunities, that I thought that it is very unlikely that President Trump will think that this is time for a military strike at all, an Israeli military strike. And then I probably would have said that President Trump is not likely to authorize a American raid over the Iranian nuclear facilities, and I would have been wrong, right, on both of those accounts. And I think the reason is that President Trump, the commitment that President Trump has, not only to the security of Israel, but also to bring meaningful solutions to the problems at hand. I think he's proving a lot of resolve and seriousness in all of those issues. He's been criticized from his own party, from the isolationists of the Republicans, which I think just don't get it, don't really understand his mindset, and I think they also don't understand what the world needs for the US to be secure. But I will refrain from going deeper into American politics. I have enough of ours in Israel, and they're definitely better experts than me on this topic in the audience and on the screen. But I gave that as an example because I think that we've seen that the difference strategically between the mindset of President Trump and the needs of Israel were not that wide. And his willingness to approve the strike, and make no mistake, if President Trump did not want Israel to attack on June 12th, Israel would not have attacked on June 12th. That is certain. The reason I know this is because Prime Minister Netanyahu himself said that he wanted to do the strike back in April, and President Trump told him, don't do this. Why? Because he wanted to try to squeeze an agreement, and he gave the Iranians the 60 days. Once the 60 days were over, he gave the approval for the strike. Wouldn't have happened any other way. And of course, the same comes for the American attack at the end of this campaign. Now, having said that, President Trump does not like wars at all, and definitely does not like long wars, and he will try to bring this to an end. I'm very happy that he insisted on bringing the Iranian attack to an end. Not that I didn't want to see more successes in Iran, but in any campaign or nearing diminishing returns on any of the aspects. And I think we were in a position where we've exhausted what we could do in the nuclear weapons program. We were very successful with the missile capabilities of Iran, but still enough of them have dropped on our heads, and 29 casualties out of those missiles could have been way worse if Israel did not have the air defense and if Hezbollah would have joined, but still significant damage. And I think rightly so, he insisted. I would assume that the major differences between Netanyahu and President Trump will be over Gaza, not over Iran at this point, and we can talk about that later. And just to fulfill it, I think I touched about this before. President Trump, I think, will still insist on trying to bring the Iranians to the negotiation table and to reach an agreement. I think in his mind, this is the ultimate win. He proved that he was willing to authorize a military strike, but the real success will be to bring a deal that would supersede the JCPOA by Obama and would prove that he can bring resolutions that are long-lasting. He says he wants it, and I think we need to be very attentive to his statements, because he says what he thinks in this regard. Will that be successful? We'll see. Is that a deal to be had that Israel can be happy with? I think definitely, especially after the attack on June. So much of the program has been hit. We have to take care of the stockpiles. We have to make sure that there is significant inspection with international community that can get to anywhere in Iran. There has to be a treatment of the weaponization program. There are things that could be done. If Iran will agree to fully dismantle their nuclear program, there could be an agreement that I will feel that is significant and important towards the future.
Interesting. We have around 10 minutes to finish, and we have a lot of questions also regarding the Gaza front, and also about like a regional perspective of the Middle East and the Abraham Accord as well. But before that, I want to finish to conclude the Iranian issue, because you touched on it a little bit at the end. How stable, for your estimation, is the Iranian regime? And if you perceive it as a stable regime, in what sense is the military operation is successful for the long run? And if obviously the motivations continues on, as you said at the end, like the agreement might be the only way to eventually like put some sort of a long-term, at least situation, this issue. Today, we saw reports that Iran are refusing for the international oversight of the nuclear program. So how do you see all of this coming together?
Yeah. So first, there is no guarantees that Iran will agree to a dismantlement deal. And as you say, if they've already signaled that they will not allow inspectors to come into Iran, if that is the case, there will be no deal. There will be no deal, no sanction relief, economic pressure, very tight intelligence monitoring. And if they choose to go back to any of the programs, they should expect Israel to re-engage in an attack if so needed. And I think this dilemma is clear to the leader. Now, to the question of regime change. Look, no one should shed a tear, not in Israel, not in the US, not in anywhere in the Western world. I think not anywhere also in the region. If this regime collapses, especially if it is replaced with a regime or a governance that is open to the needs of the Iranian people. Israel has no issues with the Iranian people. The Iranian people are intelligent, they're serious, they're educated. About 80% of them is not happy with the regime, does not support the regime, would like to see a different Iran. 80%. That's very, very significant. By the way, it's growing. By the years, about 20 years ago, when we started this, the support to the regime was more than 50%, and now it's 20% or even less than that. But the regime is strong. The regime has all of the means, all of the instruments of coercion against their own people. Israel was able to decapitate some of the heads of those organizations to make it, I think, easier for the people of Iran to believe that they might actually succeed. But for that, they need to take their fate in their own hands, not only flee to the streets, organize well, and replace the regime. I think chances of that are, I wouldn't say slim, but difficult. Iran is not well organized. Their opposition is not well organized. The ultimate leader that they aspire to and always mention is the crown prince, the son of the former Shah, Ali Reza Pahlavi. He lives in the U.S. He does not have an army. He's become very active in social media and elsewhere, and he's very, very committed to the success in Iran. And I think all of us would be happy to see him take the throne, or at least temporarily rule until Iran is in a transition. But ultimately, this is for the Iranians to decide their own fate. This is not something that should be a target of a military campaign. The Israeli government did not put it as a target, and I'm very happy they didn't. The Americans didn't put it in target. And for the same reason, hard to predict. We need to remember Supreme Leader is very old, but he's been very old for many years. And throughout my years in Mossad, everyone said that he's about to die. Well, everyone is about to die. These guys don't die easy, and I don't know how longer he will survive. But I want to think that this 12-year of bombardment over his head did not make it easier for him as well.
Thank you. Interesting. Now moving from the eastern front of Israel to the southwestern front in Gaza, we have a lot of questions. I'm not going to be able to ask all of them, but we have questions about, first of all, obviously the meeting next week in Washington. What's your estimation about some sort of an announcement that will be there regarding the agreement? We've heard a lot of discussions about the day after in Gaza, like we've just talked about the regime change in Iran. How do you see the regime change in Gaza with Hamas still operating there? We have a couple of questions regarding the humanitarian aid and the Hamas killing Gazans, Palestinian civilians, trying to get food. Do you consider this as an Israeli problem? Is Israel should care about this? Something like regarding this thing. And also, do you think that maybe we'll hear next week something regarding the expansion of the Abraham Accord, Saudi Arabia situation with Iran, and everything we've seen develop in the region?
Yeah, all easy questions. I'll try to give
very few.
Yeah, I'll try to give short and brief answers, or at least to try to kind of highlight the things we should be looking for, because it is, I think, hard to predict. I think the president's commitment to ending the war in Gaza is sincere, and it has been sincere since he took office in January, and it's been about 6 months already into this term. The first wave of release of hostages was done just before the inauguration, and since then, put aside Idan Alexander that was released as a gesture to the president. It was Israeli military action that brought back bodies of dead hostages. I think that it is sincere. Will he be able to put all the pieces together to convince Netanyahu to take a political risk? Definitely. To push Hamas to agree to things they haven't agreed to so far. Will the U.S. be willing to use leverage on the Qataris more significantly so that it will press Hamas? All big questions I don't have an answer to. What I can say is that it's doable. It's a matter of seriousness and commitment. And if all of the respected leaders will decide that we need to put an end to it, then we can put an end to it. Would it be perfect? No. Has Hamas surrendered? No, Hamas has not surrendered. But I don't think Hamas will surrender. And I think that there are dozens of thousands, unfortunately, of radical militants, terrorists in Gaza holding AK-47 and other means of explosives and other things. They don't have long-range rockets and heavy weaponry, but they have what they have. And they will not stop targeting Israelis, and they will not stop wishing for the murder of the Jews. And as long as this is the case, it is going to be hard to reach a permanent solution in Gaza. This worries me on the long run very much. And I don't have a quick fix to it, because this is not just a question of Hamas. There are also other radical parties in Gaza. What I can say is that unlike the other fronts, Gaza is more containable than the other fronts. The IDF has done, and Shabak, and all of us, right? All of us who served in this topic have done a very bad job in providing the security that the citizens of Israel deserved to receive from us as a system, from the government and from the organizations. But I have to be truthful on this. I think the major problem we had with Gaza is that we didn't take Hamas seriously enough. I've been saying this since the beginning of the war. We took Hezbollah serious, we took the Iranian serious, and you can see the outcomes in the end of last year in Lebanon and in Iran a few weeks ago. This is how we act when we do take it seriously. And I think that we did not take Hamas seriously enough. I think there was a perception that the worst that Hamas can do is not too bad, and we can allow ourselves to be more sloppy on this front. Well, the IDF is many things, but it's a learning machine, a very effective learning machine. And I don't think that we will make that mistake again in the near future. So even if they stay there in Gaza, the ability to contain them, to prevent from the replenishment, I think is serious. The management of the humanitarian situation in Gaza is a big problem. You asked if Israel should make it its problem. Well, it is Israel's problem. Why? Because we're controlling the Gaza Strip. And as long as we're controlling the Gaza Strip and no one else is there, then Israel cornered itself, to use that term, to be responsible for the distribution of the humanitarian aid. This is how this project came about, which is, I think, partially successful, maybe not as successful as everyone wanted, but it's definitely, at least for a while, was able to divert the humanitarian aid from the hand of Hamas into the hand of of those who actually really need it. But every one of those solutions will be temporary. We need a comprehensive structure for that. We have to have the involvement of more forces from the region, not just for financing this, but also for managing this. We must find ways, I think, to support the more pragmatic factions in Gaza. There are also pragmatic factions in Gaza. Yes, of course, so many of them support Hamas, and none of them like us. But it doesn't mean that there's no one there that is willing to try to promote a kind of normality in there, and would like to see the reconstruction of Gaza. Those are the things we need to work with when it comes there. Will this happen next week? I don't know. I hope it happens soon, because I don't think that extending this much longer improve the Israeli situation, not on the ground, but also not in the international arena, and in ways that I wasn't asked about this at all. But what worries me in this situation, and I would like to touch upon this, so with your permission, I'm diverting to this before time ends. I'm worried a lot that while Israel is enjoying such operational successes on all of the fronts, recovering in Gaza, surprising Hezbollah and crushing it in this way, succeeding so effectively in Iran, the Israeli image in the world is on the decline. The risks to the Jewish people, to you, to your families, to your communities, is on the rise, and significantly. It didn't. It's not just starting because of October 7, but all of the bad guys around us who are looking and trying to hurt us and to go after us have used this opportunity very, very well, unfortunately. And we're losing on those fronts, and we have to be more attentive and proactive and successful on those fronts. To do this while we're also conducting a war in Gaza, I think is just impossible. Not just because of the attention span of the Israeli government, but we continue to feed those narratives that Israel does not want to end the war and all we're interested is in oppressing Gaza. It's becoming so difficult to convince in the Israeli viewpoint. I do a lot of media in the US. It is increasingly becoming difficult to explain what it is that we're doing in Gaza after we've succeeded so much in Lebanon, succeeded so much in Iran, what it is with this strip that keeps us active militarily. And we can use the term "we have to win" just to some extent in this long. And these things worry me a lot. My hope is that we can start shaping those actions and to put the attention together with you, together with the communities in the US and elsewhere, to amend those fractures into sutures.
Thank you. We're talking about the Gazian front, and it was just published here in Israel that another soldier died in Gaza and 8 injured. So obviously we send our condolences to the families and full recovery wishes to the soldiers who were injured. Eyal, thank you so much. This was a very interesting briefing and very important one, and all of us are looking forward for next week to hear about the news that are going on. I want to thank all the speakers that's been here with us today, and for everyone who joined us today. This moment in history reminds us of the importance of standing together. The American Jewish Congress will continue to lead the effort to strengthen U.S. and Israel cooperation, defend democratic values, and support those affected by this conflict. If you haven't already yet, please follow us on social media and our mailing list. You'll get an email afterward this session from us, and you can have all the links there. I'm wishing you a safe and good week, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.